Hey golfers, and welcome back to the Second Swing YouTube channel for another Live at Lunch. For those that have been following the channel, of course, we go live every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you set your calendars to it. We are live every Thursday. Today we got a really special one. We have a special guest joining us today. It is Brian Knudson from GolfWRX because, well, I guess we're at that point now in the calendar year where maybe past the initial excitement of the launches, right? The new products that are coming out. And now it's about, okay, which products are really nailed it this year. So that's why we have Brian coming in. So Brian, with GolfWRX, they've just launched their best of, or started to publish their best of content. So we had to bring in Brian to get the expertise here. So Brian, thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the time here that you're spending with us here. How are things going for you?
Well, it's going great. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I'm super excited to be part of this, live at lunch. And things are good, busy getting through all the best of. I mean, we do, of course, drivers, fairways, and then we move on as we go through, hybrids and irons as well. So still going strong, but everything's going good, just busy. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of the name of the game, especially this time of year for us in this kind of equipment industry, right? Is I know for us at Second Swing in this, especially up here where we are in Minnesota with our stores, getting busy right now is pretty much normal as golf season starts to kind of pick up in the Midwest. So now I wanted to ask, just first, again, we've kind of outlined a little bit about what best of is, but could you kind of just explain to the viewers what this initiative is, I guess what's all the information that it provides, but also what you all gather and kind of putting this whole thing together.
Yeah. So, this has been kind of every year we kind of have a lot of internal discussions, internal meetings about, when you look at best of, especially drivers, what to do. And, there's a lot of stuff out there that does robot testing, player testing, whatever. And, we came up a few years ago with, we can, there's a ton of fitters out here across the country, across the world that fit, have been fitting since the new gear came out. And they see so many swings, so many different swings, so many different handicaps. You name it. They're seeing everything every day. And we just came up with, why not utilize these fitters to get data on what drivers are going into people's bags. And so what we do is we go out and this year, thankfully we've had the largest group of fitters that we've ever worked with this year, which was awesome. And we basically go out and we survey all these fitters, and they're fitters in the US, Canada, some in Europe. I mean, we've kind of spread as this thing has grown. And we go through them, we survey them about the best drivers in 3 different, swing speed categories. Now, I know some people say, well, what about handicap? What about this? Listen, there's no perfect way to create a best list, of any clubs. The best list is when you go see your fitter and you work on whatever, club or whatever you're working on. And that club is, here's the best one. And that's what works. But what we're trying to do is basically just give people, information on what, what has been working in the fitting bays, all around. And, get people kind of excited to see what they're probably going to experience when they do go see their fitter and they do go hit some of these products and have an idea of probably what may or may not work for them, what they may or may not get handed in the bay. And I think it's been really successful. It's been awesome. I get to talk to a lot of the fitters personally, and it's just a great list to put together. And it's really fun to hear a lot of their insights and things like that on these products.
Yeah, I think first of all, it's really cool what you guys do here and talking to the entire, really the industry as a whole. I mean, especially as for me, it's kind of fun too to see the symmetry between what, in the conversations I have with second swing fitters, and then kind of seeing how those results are pretty similar, right, to what you end up publishing in this content with the discussions you have with fitters all across the industry. So that part's really cool. I also wanted to just add a quick note for anybody watching. If you have any comments, questions, you name it, YouTube chat is available and open right now if you subscribe to our channel. I see a couple already from Randy in there that we will get to here in short order. But I do want to dive into these drivers to start here, Brian. So it's kind of cool what you guys do. You guys have a couple different categories. First of all, just kind of what's most forgiving, but also dialing up the best drivers by swing speed too, which I think is an important component. And we get questions about that particular piece a lot on the channel, both and also in the fitting bays. So kind of just, why did you divvy it up into those categories? But then also, can you kind of dive into maybe some of the results starting with the most forgiving drivers?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we went with club head speed only because, especially nowadays in golf, we're seeing more athletic players come into this game. And a lot of people say, well, why don't you go by handicap? And well, there's players who are just starting out and they may have a really high handicap, in the 20s, even 30s, whatever it is, but they're really athletic. They swing really fast, and they produce numbers that typically a person thought of in that handicap doesn't produce. And I think that's just kind of changing as as we've seen the game grow, we've seen different people come into it. So instead of going by handicap or something like that, we decided to kind of break it down into those club head speed categories. So we have 106 miles an hour and above, 95 to 105,
Hmm.
and then 94 and below. And I think every one of those categories, it gives the fitter the ability to talk about clubs for whether it's a low handicap or scratch type golfer or a higher handicap player who's just beginning or aspiring. They're going to fit in one of those categories. And I think it gives the fitter a little bit of freedom to kind of, show what they think has been working across the board. And they're not stuck on just, well, it's just a better player or just a higher handicap player. So we kind of went with that just because, it opens it up a little bit. And again, people will debate it, and that's fine. But yeah, we feel like that's kind of the easiest way for the fitters to kind of use that and, recommend their favorite drivers, through that. And then, yeah, we'll talk about drivers. Starting with most forgiving. I mean, like every time, I mean, most forgiving, it's pretty, that one's pretty self-explanatory. We don't use any type of club head speed thing or anything like that. It's simply what drivers are you seeing where players are hitting the straightest shots with them. And yeah, I mean, it starts off, I think nobody's really shocked when you look at some of these here. They're pretty common. I think a lot of us, if we were asked, what do we think the most forgiving drivers are, a lot of these hit. There's one that was kind of maybe a little bit surprising to me. But yeah, I mean, it went with the Ping G440 Max, the Titleist GT2, the TaylorMade QI35 Max, the Ping G430 Max 10K, and then the Callaway Elite. So those were the kind of
Yeah.
five that come up a lot. And I'll say, like, the one that's surprising to me a little bit was GT2. It's
Yeah.
not heralded as a 10K driver or a crazy stable driver, any of these things. It's not kind of like put in those buckets, but it comes out as one of the most forgiving. And when I talk to a lot of fitters, and including your own Kevin Kraft over there, a lot of people really high on how straight and how easy that GT2 is to hit for players of pretty much all handicap ranges.
Yeah, I think it's important to note with Titleist, especially being that they released their woods and their drivers back in 2024, right? So sometimes it's almost I won't say forgotten, but sort of below the radar, right? But GT2, GT3, awesome drivers. So in that regard, no surprises to see them there. But you're right, just not heralded as that like max or super forgiving model.
Yeah, exactly. And the same thing a little bit with the Callaway Elite. That one there is not necessarily, people, if you go to Callaway and kind of look at their kind of lineup, the Elite X is probably the one that kind of fits that bill. But a lot of fitters there, looking at, adjustability on that head and things like that, they're able to dial that into a lot of, different swings and make it a pretty straight driver. So, yeah, the other one that's interesting too is the QI35 Max, which was on the list a good amount, and the praise that driver got compared from last year to this year, the improvements that it's made and the praise that it got by a lot of fitters was really cool to see. So it seems like a lot of fitters are high on that driver and they like what it's doing in the fitting bay for customers this year.
Yeah, definitely some great stuff there all around. I have heard similar things just from our fitters internally here. So, excuse me. I wanted to go into the swing speeds now. So there's also some unique results to the various swing speeds that you outlined before: 106 plus, 95 to 105, and then 94 and below. Let's kind of go into those results, and then we can list off the drivers. But also, I like how you kind of outlined one that was maybe surprising. So starting with 106 plus, these are the fastest swing speeds out there. I'm seeing a lot of low spin type models in there. Any feedback on those results there?
Yeah, so the high swing speed players, I mean, yes, you're right. I mean, typically a higher swing speed player generates a little bit more spin, so you're going to see that kind of represented in the drivers in that category. So you've got the Callaway Elite Triple Diamond, the GT3 from Titleist, the Ping G440 LST, the low spin model, the TaylorMade QI35 LS, and the Cobra DS Adapt LS. All of those, I'm not really shocked at any of them, to be honest with you. The one that was kind of the most interesting to hear, again, the talk about was the Callaway, the Elite Triple Diamond. And the biggest thing that kept coming up over and over again was not only is it great for that high speed, really good player who wants to, just get the maximum out of it. They want that ball speed, they want spin control, launch control. But how many fitters we're talking about? You know what? I've got a little higher handicap player, and it is forgiving enough if I keep that heavy weight back and we make the adjustments that even the higher handicap player, that mid handicap player who has some speed, can get away with playing this. It's not as fade biased as AI Smoke Triple Diamond. It's not quite as hardcore as that. It's a little more neutral. And it was amazing to hear how many fitters were really high on that for not only the scratch, a really good player, but also, that 10, 15 handicap that swings fast that could use what it does, but it's still forgiving enough to play. So that was a big thing that I kept hearing over and over from a lot of fitters and seeing in the surveys.
Yeah, again, it's the same exact stuff I'm hearing too. One of our fitters, Jake Montgomery, who's also on the YouTube channel quite a bit, he has been saying the same thing over and over about Elite and Triple Diamond especially, is the toe strikes are been so good with that driver. So moving on to 95 to 105, that swing speed category. Any unique findings there in that range?
For that one there, I mean, I think, when you look at it again, I'll just run through them real quick. The Titleist GT2, Callaway Elite, the Ping G440 Max, the TaylorMade QI35, and the Cobra DS Adapt X. The same thing with that. In terms of shockers, I don't think I'm really shocked with anything. I do have to say that throughout everything, all categories, that Cobra, when you talk to these fitters, all the fitters are absolutely loving the hosel system. They are loving Future Fit 33. When you talk to them and they start talking about, oh man, I can do this, I can independently change loft or change lie or, do whatever they need to do. And maybe you don't need the massive adjustment. I can just use one of the in-between adjustments or whatever. Fitters are loving it. I haven't heard anybody out there in the surveys, anything that are saying anything negative about that hosel system. They love the fact that they can really dial somebody in using that. And that was one of the big ones. And then the other one too, QI35, a lot of people really, really high on that movable weight system. And they actually said that it kind of, for them, cannibalizes a little bit of the LS sales, because if they shift that heavy weight forward, they make it a low spin driver, but it still holds on to a lot of the forgiveness that the Max still has. And in the same realm, you've got that player who's a little higher handicap, but they got a lot of speed. That driver works for them. And they say like that one there can kind of flip between a couple different categories, the way it you can set it up. And those two, got a lot of talk, a lot of high praise from these fitters.
Yeah, that's a great point. I didn't even think about that with the QI35 and the movable weights, and you can kind of find a tweener there between the QI35 and the LS model. So that's another unique finding there. That again, people listening, I'm sure there's several right now watching that are in that category, thinking about a new driver. Some good feedback there on those particular models. Again, that was the GT2, the Callaway Elite, G440 Max, QI35, and the Cobra DS Adapt X with that hosel. Now, lastly, with the drivers here, wanted to go through that I guess last category of swing speed, 94 miles an hour and below. So similar, some of the models cross over here, but what were the kind of the five, winners, so to speak, in that 94 miles an hour and below category?
Yes, this one here, again, I don't think anything crazy shocking, but the Ping G440 Max, the TaylorMade QI35 Max, the Titleist GT2, the Titleist GT1, and the Cobra DS Adapt Max K were the five in that category. And, we're talking to fitters, the one I was kind of a little bit surprised was with GT1. It just hasn't been out that long. It was the late release. It came out much later than GT2 and GT3, GT4. And how many people have gotten that? And again, just the versatility of it. Before GT1 was this kind of high launch, high spin, super lightweight driver. It fit that, that category of golfer who needed it. And this new one with, the adjustability, having more weights to it, it's one of those ones where it fits a wider range of golfers now. And it doesn't have to be just a super lightweight, high spin driver. You can make this thing fit a few more different people. And I think fitters, again, we're really high on it. And for being out just a short time, it was kind of surprising to see it, that high on the list, because I didn't think it would be there just because of the timing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And again, we talked about it with GT2 and GT3, and well, and GT4 too, in that regard, are released several months before. And then this GT1 kind of is, again, I don't want to call it an afterthought, but I think there is a, maybe a sense of it doesn't get the publicity, right, that these other launches do. And so to see it get some recognition here is obviously really cool, and it does speak to the performance of it. Also wanted to call out the DS Adapt Max K. So jumping into that 10 10K, quote unquote 10K category. Cobra did it. I don't want to say did it the right way, but like they've clearly, waited that year, I guess, to jump into that mix, and it has paid off for them. I've heard a ton of great things from our fitters in that on that product, and it almost creates a bit of a dilemma sometimes for both the customers and the fitters of like the DS Adapt X is a really good kind of standard, model within the lineup, but the 10K is just as good in terms of ball speed, but actually adds a little bit of stability there. So sometimes that decision becomes really tough between those two products, and also has the adjustability of the Future Fit 33. So I wanted to call that one out. The Cobra DS Adapt Max K. If it might not be on the top of your radar right now if you're watching this and interested in a new driver, but something you should probably try out for sure, because I think we've heard some really good things on it. So with that said, before moving on, I wanted to open up and encourage anybody watching right now, jump in the chat. We got a couple questions I'm going to get to right now. Randy is asking about drivers. Specifically, he's got a question about, he says, I have a TSR2. What 2025 driver model is comparable to this one? I know obviously GT2 comes to mind right away, but any others out there, maybe Titleist or otherwise, that you would think of for Randy here if he's trying to find something comparable?
Yeah, I mean, TSR2 was phenomenal. I played it all, right before GT2 came out. It was kind of my gamer. I played a TSR2, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I think GT2 is the easy answer because it's, the newest version of it. But I think, too, something, too, is look at the Callaway Elite. I think that's a great driver. It's got a bunch of adjustability that maybe the TSR2 doesn't have. But the one thing that, like, GT2 has, or everybody's, all these fitters have been saying about Titleist drivers, is ball speed's been phenomenal. From TSR into GT, there's very few drivers that beat out those in ball speed. And I think when you look at the Elite, the standard model, you not only get the stability, the forgiveness that the TSR2 offered, but you should get that ball speed, and whether you miss it a little bit on the face, miss a little high toe, a little low heel, you're still going to get great ball speed out of it. And the spin consistency is definitely a little bit better over the TSR2. So I think something like that. And again, like you just mentioned it, the DS Adapt from Cobra, the X, I think that one there, great ball speed on that, good blend of forgiveness and speed. And, with the adjustability there too, you're getting a little more than you kind of got out of the TSR2 in terms of adjustability. So I would say those two would be great ones to look at along with the GT2.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments we got to yesterday. We posted an Instagram story asking people for kind of their feedback and, what they think is going to be some of the best stuff based on the results here. Steven DeBari is a Callaway Elite, definitely a top 3 driver. So obviously he is hitting on that, and it seems like the fitters agree with that assessment. Other question from Randy was about irons, actually. Can a Callaway DCB Apex iron, is it easy to work the ball as in a draw or fade with that one?
The DCB was kind of meant to be. It was a little bit bigger. At that point when they brought out that iron, that was 21. They brought out 3 models. They had the Apex Pro, Apex, and then Apex DCB. And that was meant to be the highest, straightest flying one. Now, I mean, with irons, you can work just about anything. Will you be able to, work it as far right or left out of the rough? It'll probably be a little bit lower spinning, so that may be a little bit of a challenge. But I mean, a standard fairway lie, yeah, you'll definitely be able to go and hit a draw and a fade with it. It just may not draw and fade as much as some other irons that may be smaller. But yeah, that was kind of a slept-on iron. It was actually a really, really solid piece. That just didn't kind of get the love that Apex and Apex Pro got.
Yeah. Excuse me. All right, let's get into fairways here, Brian. The fairway woods. Again, that's another piece of this whole puzzle from the Best of series for GolfWRX. Can you again just talk about the categories that you've hit on? You've got forgiving and you've got versatile. Why did you kind of divvy them up into those two categories with the series here?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is you don't really go with club head speed on this one because realistically, a lot of people know driver club head speed kind of around where they are. They've gone into fittings, they've done driver fittings, they've gone to a launch monitor, and they've hit some balls. Not many people will probably know what they swing their 3 or 4 wood or whatever at their fairway wood. They just, it's not a number that you kind of stick in your head. So we kind of looked at it and said, what do people look at when they want a 3 wood? What do they look at from it? Like, what are the things they want? And typically there's a big group that says, I want a really forgiving 3 wood. I want something that's just going to go straight. It's going to go high. It's going to be easy to hit. And it just makes my life easier, makes it more fun to play. And then there's another group of people that have a kind of a little bit more of a, they're a little more niche. they kind of want something that they can use off the tee. They can hit off the deck. Like Randy kind of mentioned, they can maybe work the ball a little bit. Hey, I play a fade with my 3-wood, but I draw my driver, or, maybe opposite, whatever they do. But they kind of have specific needs for 3-wood, and they want to be able to do those things. So we kind of looked at it as, like I said, we're not going to use club head speed. So, let's use those two buckets to kind of figure out, what fairway woods will work best in these. And yeah, versatile is kind of, more aimed at that player. And it's kind of aimed a little bit more the slightly better player who wants to do different things with 3-wood. And then the forgiving one is kind of for the rest of us who are looking for 3-wood that's just easy to hit, go straight, hopefully goes far, and, just makes the game easier. So that's where we kind of came up with those categories.
Yeah, I think there's definitely, I kind of agree with you on the two sort of schools of thought there on the use of fairway woods. It's like, what kind of shot can I create? Or, on the other hand, it's what kind of launch can I get? How high and how far can I hit this ball? So, but yeah, let's get into kind of the results here. So the most versatile fairway woods, let's start with that category. I see 5 models here. I'm not surprised to see any of them in particular, but what other pieces of feedback did you get, from the fitters based on the results that we got here?
Yeah, so most versatile, I will say there's one that kind of surprised me a little bit. But yeah, we went with the Ping G440 Max, Titleist GT2, Cobra DS Adapt X, the Callaway Elite, and then the TaylorMade QI35. It's nothing too crazy. I was a little bit surprised with the G440 Max. I thought that, for the versatile, some players, maybe it launches a little too high, maybe it, spins a little bit more, things like that. Goes a little straighter. I didn't think that one would make the versatile list, but it clearly did. And I mean, when you look out on tour, I mean, they do make an LST. Ping does, G440 LST in the fairway. But when you look out on tour, most of the players out there are playing the Max, fairways. So there's definitely something to be said there. With a lot of these too, I mean, something like the Titleist GT2, the fitter's kind of like driver. It is just an all-around club. Whether you're a scratch player who's aspiring to play, competitively, it's going to probably work for you. It's going to launch high. It's going to go far. It looks, sounds great. But then also, if you're a player who just, hey, I want to get the ball in the air, I need to hit it further. I mean, you could move to, they make some slightly higher lofted models. The adjustability on it allows them to kind of dial in that player, take out maybe a little flight bias if they make it a little more upright, try to take away some fade, things like that. The GT2 got a lot of high praise there just for being, a versatile, a fairway that'll fit a ton of players. The other one too was Callaway. I mean, the Elite, it's a shallower face, easy to get the ball up in the air, and kind of, I wouldn't say mimics Ping, but Ping is known as that shallow face fairway that's easy to launch. A lot of those kind of same things said about Callaway Elite this year, and that new sole design. Same people really like how that kind of turf interaction is. It gets through fast, and it helps kind of move that contact patch maybe just a little bit higher up on the face, because 3-woods notoriously are known for being hit low on the face when they're missed, and that sole design has helped people get it a little more center, a little better smash factor out of it.
Yeah, the Elite has been awesome from in my own personal testing, but also just feedback from fitters. I know Kevin Kraft, especially, who you talked to, has been raving about those. He put one in the bag right away. And when he puts something in the bag like that, it's significant to me as knowing how much of a tinkerer and how picky he is. And so I also wanted to add one thing on the versatility of the G440 Max. The addition of the 4-wood within the lineup there, I guess, in my mind, does add some options that they have now. In the past, to get to, say, a 17-degree fairway wood, with Ping, you'd have to, manipulate the lie angle with their hosel, right? So now you have this stock 4-wood at 17 degrees that, for a lot of players, is probably going to be the best option for them as the longest wood in their bag, aside from driver, but the longest wood in their bag. So to me, that actually, I don't know if any of the fitter comments that you received were, referring to that, but I think that's a big piece of the fitting puzzle for us at Second Swing now, is to instead of trying to make maybe a jacked up 3-wood right up to 16.5 or something work for a player with maybe that closed lie angle, or that closed face angle, excuse me. Now you have the stock 4-wood at 17 degrees that might be able to fit just a little bit better for players. So just kind of another option, and I guess that in a way can make it more versatile.
Yeah, definitely. And the same thing with, taking a 5 wood and trying to turn it down. I mean, if a
Right.
player's a kind of a fade player and you try to open that face way up to try to take that loft off, same thing. You might not find success there either. So I think you're right. I think that's a huge part of that fitting because let's be honest, fitters at the end of the day are problem solvers and they love solving problems and they love looking at a swing and trying to
Yes.
fix that issue. So yeah, and the other one too, I think the same thing with TaylorMade is going back to having adjustable hosels in all the fairways is huge. I mean, I think that's the same thing. It allows those fitters where QI10 was a phenomenal fairway wood. That thing was great. We saw it on tour. We saw it in tons of amateur bags. It was just a really good fairway. And I think QI35 takes all those good things and then you add an adjustable hosel and now you
Yep.
can adjust a little bit of face angle. You can add a little loft. You can make it a little bit more upright. And it allows that fitter to really not only say, hey, here's a really good fairway. Well, now we've got it really dialed into you. Now it's built. Now it's really made for you, and that is a huge thing. So yeah, those type of things are massive when you look from year to year.
Yeah, I know that was a bit of a dilemma in the past with TaylorMade Fairway woods for especially, obviously the low spin or tour model has had that hosel, the adjustable hosel in the past, but to not have it in the standard, I know was a bit of a kind of a tricky situation sometimes for the fitters. So they were definitely celebrating the addition of that with QI35. So now let's get into the most forgiving models here. Again, some crossover between versatility and then forgiving here, but let's go through the results there and for you in particular, if there was any surprises.
Yeah, so the most forgiving, the Ping G440 Max comes out there again, and then TaylorMade's QI35 Max, the Callaway Elite X, Cobra's DS Adapt X, and the Titleist GT1. I think kind of two things for me. One, again, much like Driver, really surprised that GT1 made it in there because again, it just hasn't been out that long. But when you start talking to these fitters and looking at the surveys, that dual weight system on the sole of that thing, they say just makes that extremely versatile. Like the people like not shocked if you see one out on tour because you're able to put that heavy weight forward, make it a little bit lower spinning, maybe launch a little lower, and then for the player who needs just utmost forgiveness, launch it high, throw some heavy weight back, and let that thing go. It'll add some spin. It's a little bigger footprint than say GT2 is. So that one there got a ton of praise. And again, just hasn't been out that long. And people are loving the fact that they can just adjust this thing in so many different ways to fit players. And then again, I was kind of shocked to see the DS Adapt X in this one. I thought we would see the Max because
Yeah.
technically it's, the most forgiving, highest launching. But again, these fitters just talking about how easy that club is to hit. And not only is it long, it creates a ton of ball speed for players who want that extra distance or need it because they may be slowed down a little. But then it's forgiving, it's straight, it's easy to launch. Like it's one of those, like it just does it all really well that they haven't necessarily needed to pull the Max head. They're able to put, the X in someone's hand, hit it really well. And, they don't have to revert to something that's even, a little bit bigger or anything like that. A lot of players can play that fairway and find a ton of success with it. So those two, I was a little surprised. The rest of them, G440 Max, the QI35 Max and the Elite X, I kind of expected those to be there. But those two, the DS Adapt X and the GT1, kind of shocked. And again, hearing some of the great things from fitters about how they can utilize these for players, it was really kind of cool.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I'm looking at the comments. By the way, I should reference. I should have said this earlier, but for the viewers, you can see this information on the GolfWRX's website. They have posted, their stories, so to speak, with the driver and the Fairway woods results. And so I'm looking at that page right now and look at some of the fitter comments. And it's again, it's significant that the fitter comments about the Cobra DS Adapt products are largely about that hosel. So, here's one on the Fairway wood. Great adjustability with future fit can be dialed in for all golfers. And then this one in particular I like. With the adjustments, you can make this club work for any type of swing path. So, and maybe that's part of why maybe the Max model didn't come in here is because that has, maybe some draw bias, so to speak, in there. Whereas the DS Adapt X, you can make that club, open it slightly, close it slightly. It can work for any type of swing path. And again, it seems overwhelming to have 33 options. That is a lot. I'm not going to, disagree with someone that might be thinking that. But the fitters are also trained really well. I actually watched this happen down at the PGA show. Our team got and set up with Jose Miraflor, who obviously does awesome work for Cobra. And he sat and trained our fitters and simplified it really well so that our fitters know exactly where to go just based on a few shots that they see already with a gamer for a player, right? So it seems like a lot, but It's only designed to help you, and to have that many options there, who knows if you might need 0.7 degrees adjustment on your lie angle versus a whole degree, right? Maybe that's a big difference for you. You never really know until you actually swing it. So kudos to Cobra, and I think as we go throughout the year here, I think they're going to get even more recognition for that hosel and the way it's going to benefit golfers.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, not only speaking with Kevin, who was a fitter at Second Swing, but also like these other fitters around. I mean, it was just that was everybody was saying was like, yeah, kind of I was unsure at first, and then as soon as you saw it, and I was kind of the same way when I went out there at the end of last year. I went out to Cobra headquarters, and Jose, who, like you said, is just an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Walked in and started showing me Future Fit 33, and I was kind of waiting to see. I was like, okay, I got some questions lined up about how hard this is. And then he started breaking it down, and you're like, wow, yeah, this is actually far, far more simple than you think it is. Because if you walk into a fitter and they're trying to get you to try all 33 settings, you need to walk out and find a new fitter, because that's not how it's designed. It's not meant for that. And like you said, for maybe a skilled golfer, maybe they only need a little bit of that adjustment. And for somebody else, a player like me, hey, I need the full. Give me the full loft. I need that full degree. So, those type of things to have at your disposal. Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things from fitters, and I think that's going to be a big thing for Cobra going forward by the end of this year. And you're going to see a lot of Cobra drivers and a lot of bags this year, or Cobra clubs in general.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to see a whole shift in other manufacturers increasing their adjustability options here. We'll see. That's to be determined, but they've definitely done something pretty remarkable, I'd say. So I got a couple questions here in the chat that I wanted to get to. Actually, this is more of a comment from Nathan. Said, I'm the weirdo. I know I hit my 3-wood at 100 miles an hour. Last year's Dark Speed X 3-wood. Incredible fairway wood. It's just awesome. Is there any, I guess, what would you say if he was looking to up, is it worth the upgrade with the hosel? I guess, what would you say to Nathan in that regard?
I would say, I say with everybody, like when you're looking to go, especially year to year is always tough because people always see the shiny new things. And trust me, I'm one of those people. I see the new stuff and I'm just like, man, I got to go hit it. I think you got to look at what you have. And is there something in terms of performance that you would like to improve? And if there is, then you go kind of talk to your fitter and say, hey, this is what I'd like to do a little bit better than what I'm doing. But for, a guy like him, I mean, I think it sounds like he's hitting it really well. I don't know that maybe that Future Fit hosel will necessarily add too much. Now, maybe if he was like, you know what, I'm kind of overdrawing it a little bit. I'd love to have just maybe a hair more fade bias. Yeah, I mean, the new Tour Adapt or the DS Adapt LX could offer a little bit maybe flatter lie or something like that to kind of help that. But is that worth just kind of getting rid of a club and going to a new one? I don't know that it necessarily is. When new products come out, everybody always says, oh man, new products, like you don't have to go buy it. And if you go talk to any manufacturer, and I've had the pleasure of talking to them, much like you have, when they come out with a new driver next year, like they're not thinking that the person who bought this year's driver is going to go buy next year's driver. Like they're looking at it as people with drivers who are 5 years old. Like that's who they're expecting to come in and take a look and come get fit. And do that. So, for that, I would say probably hold on, especially if, he's talking pretty high praise about it. I would say keep it in the bag. 3-woods are tough to find. It's hard to find that perfect one. So keep it in the bag if you like it.
Yeah, I was going to kind of echo that because, obviously as, at Second Swing, a big component of what we do is use clubs, right? And so there is, we have a big focus today on the new drivers and the new fairway woods. Absolutely. But Dark Speed and Dark Speed, the Dark Speed series as a whole from last year, still phenomenal. The disadvantage really is that you don't have all those Future Fit adjustments, but you're still going to get a ton of great performance. And then, going back to Randy, who was asking about TSR2 earlier, if that thing works for you, you could stick with it. It's still an awesome driver, still really good performance. A lot of our, like you said, you're still seeing a lot of that gamed on tour. And so I guess that's just a general thought I wanted to add is a lot of focus on the new stuff, and the new stuff is awesome for sure. But depending on where you're at budget-wise, the stuff you have in your bag is still probably really good if it's a year, 2 years old, right? And it can still probably really work for you. So wanted to just give that caveat in there as well. I do have another comment here from Phil in the YouTube chat that I wanted to kind of get your feedback on. And it's basically, he says, more manufacturers need to use the same tip in the driver with the fairway woods. And so, because there are I think there's enough out there where the adjustment possibilities are maybe slightly different from driver to fairway wood. I know you see that with Titleist a little bit. So could you just maybe speak on, I guess, the kind of, the versatility that Cobra has with their hosel, and it works for each product, or each type of product, or fairway wood and hybrid. Maybe just speaking on that and the versatility options there, and maybe if we'll see that moving forward, that'll be married up a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, from OEM to OEM, we're never going to see it. There's because everybody has their idea of what works best,
yeah,
and how they, So with that, I mean, trust me, I'm a person. I try pretty much everything brand new, and I would love to have something like that where every fairway I can take the same shaft and just plug it in and go hit the balls, and compare things that way. So yeah, that I don't think you'll ever see come. I mean, we can't even get shaft flex isn't even an industry standard on what is stiff and what is X and whatever. So tips will never all become the same. But I like the fact that a lot of more people are going to adjustable hosels on fairways. For one, you get to dial in. Fitter gets to walk into second swing. He gets to dial in that customer better than he could with a bonded hosel. And two, a place like yours where people understand that, like, when you have a fitting bay, all that stuff in there, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of products, but being able to have multiple shafts to fit into a fairway head is huge for fitting as well. You can try a few different things with bonded hosels. You just have to have 20 QI 10s in stiff and 20 in reg and whatever. If you wanted to have every shaft, now you can have one head, a couple different shafts on the wall, and that way those fitters can grab it and try different things. So I think that in hybrids and fairways is awesome, because I think it opens up more fitting, not only just from the adjustment phase, but being able to have in your arsenal, walk back, grab a different shaft. Hey, let's try something a little heavier. Maybe let's try something a little lighter here, something like that to kind of really help that fitting process, I think is absolutely huge. So the adjustable stuff for hybrids and fairways, I mean, I think it's just as equally good as with driver. I think it has just as many uses, if not more, in the fitting scenario, like in your guys' bays.
Yeah, it's been cool to see that progression. Now, there's the way the fitting iron heads also in our bays. I know we're talking about drivers and fairways today, but the iron heads are also, adjustable.
Yep.
And some of the systems are really cool there that our fitters get to use. So, I guess the bottom line here is that each of these, each of these manufacturers, right, are making it easier every year for the fitters to do their jobs, the fitters to dial you in, and there's just another level that they get to every year. I know Ping has been phenomenal at that with our team, and some of the, not even just the components, but also like the softwares and technologies and things that our team has access to. I'm going to open it up again one more time. A reminder here to viewers and listeners that are in the chat right now. If you have any other final comments or questions, please drop them in here. We're going to start to wrap up here shortly. I guess, Brian, I'm going to pose one question to you here as sort of we kind of summarize, and that is there one product out of all the drivers and all the fairways? I don't want to say that is best, but you think that's maybe made the most significant sort of appearance this year in these results, in the best of, the drivers, the fairway woods? Is there one product that maybe you didn't think would be make as much noise as it really did this year?
The one that stands out to me, and I don't know if I talked about it in driver, but it was QI 35 Max. I think I mentioned in driver, like last year's version of that, it was kind of a high spinning, high launching driver, and a lot of these fitters just, it was great. It was 10K, it was straight, but you had to have the right person to fit into it. And the one that shocked me the most is that one, because it's one, got a ton of votes, and two, when you get into the surveys, you get into talking to these fitters, they've added some ball speed to it. They've brought that spin down. They doesn't launch quite as high. It's a little bit more flat, and everything that they've done to it, it seems like it's just a huge improvement. And that's the one that, just every fitter, when you got to that one in the list, especially the people I talked to, it was just like, wow, yeah, like this is really good. I can't, I fit so many more of this driver than I did last year. Last year it was kind of, finicky, or I only got a couple pieces in play this early in the year. Now I'm seeing so many more players go to it, and it's not just a slower club head speed. I'm seeing now faster club head speeds that are able to use this driver. And that's the one that shocked me the most, just of how many votes it got in all categories, and what the fitters said. That was my biggest one. And then the other interesting thing that kind of jumps out is how many people, when you started talking about ping, sound and feel. Now I know it's not like, when you look at best driver, you're talking usually about numbers, but when you look at that and how many people said the sound and feel, nobody walks out of that bay saying that doesn't sound good or that doesn't feel good. And for a ping driver, that's pretty massive because it
They've
wasn't
made
too
some
many years
serious
ago.
strides in that department. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah. I mean, was it 425? A phenomenal driver in terms of performance. Didn't sound and feel great. These new ones, the 440s, I mean, I think they sound and feel great as well. They're so muted, so quiet. But every fitter says, like, that is no longer ever a hurdle with a ping driver. Like, as soon as they hit it, they're like, yep, it sounds and feels great. What are the numbers? And, like, you just dive into it. You don't have to kind of do the sell of, like, I know it doesn't sound great, but look at the numbers. Like, no, it does it all. So those were kind of two things that really jumped out that people were or fitters were just, really big on. And it was kind of surprising to hear. But QI35 Max is the one that I was kind of like, wow, like this is a big jump because nobody was given this much praise last year. And now we're getting a ton of it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's I mean, again, when a specific model like that suddenly gets a bunch of feedback, I think it's points to just how much better the club is versus the previous year. So I'll end it with this question from the chat here. I think it's a good one to kind of start wrapping up here, Brian. This is from Eric in the YouTube chat. Which do you like better for a 90 to 95 mile an hour driver speed? So he's talking about driver swing speed, but he's also talking about fairway woods. So I'm just making that clear here. So Callaway Elite Titanium fairway, assuming the Elite Titanium, or Ping G430 Max fairway wood. And those are actually kind of two somewhat different products there. So could you kind of maybe lay out between the two of those for someone with, that 90 to 95 driver swing speed of the two, which you like?
Yeah, I mean, this one's it's funny because I like both these a lot, and I've been hitting them recently. So yeah, I mean, for the player, I think if you're looking at I'm going to put it this way because to say this one is better than the other is kind of impossible just going off a club head speed. I mean, you'd have to go get fit, but I would say this: if you're looking for something that is just easy to launch, it goes really straight, and overall it's just super playable, the 440 Max it's hard to beat. It's one of the easiest to launch fairways I think that's still out there. It still goes far. It's got good ball speed. I think the spin consistency on misses and center strikes is super tight. It's just a really consistent straight driver. If you're looking for, I want some more ball speed, I need to hit it a little bit further. I'm like me, I've gotten a little older. I don't hit as far as I used to. I'd like to get a little of that back without sacrificing, forgiveness and hitting it straight. The Elite Titanium is hard to beat. I've seen some ball speed numbers with that I haven't seen in too many fairway woods yet, and I'm seeing in mini drivers. Now it does spin a little less, so it may be a little bit harder to get in the air than the 440 Max, but it launches pretty easily. It goes forever, and the ball speed on it is just fantastic. But it's really straight. So that's about how I would put it. If you're looking for just absolute straight high down the middle, G440 Max is a great option. If you're looking for a little bit of speed, a little bit more extra distance while still being pretty darn straight, Elite Titanium.
Yeah, and also I would note, too, that there is probably a bit of a difference in price there just because with the all-titanium kind of construction of the Callaway there, obviously that just comes with a bit of a higher price tag if budget is, a concern there. So, but, yeah, I think, as we start to wrap up here, Brian, first of all, thank you for the time today. This has been awesome. I encourage anybody watching, both either live right now or after the fact that this thing gets uploaded to YouTube, to go to GolfWRX.com and stay tuned there for more results as they are filtered in and published on the website there. Also, Brian, I want to give you the chance to tell people where they can find your stuff and where to subscribe, where they come and capture or they consume your content.
Yeah, so pretty much we're at GolfWRX everywhere, whether Instagram, TikTok, X. I always want to call it Twitter still.
Right, same.
Twitter, X. It's like I'm never going to be able to make that change. But at GolfWRX on pretty much every social platform we're there. GolfWRX .com is our website. So you got the front page there with all that, and then we have our forum as well with all the bunch of driver stuff in there, as well as everything else in the forum of people chatting golf. So but at GolfWRX, and then myself, I'll shamelessly plug. I do my own little podcast called the Club Junkie. So at Club Junkie Pod on Instagram, but I do my own little Club Junkie podcast for Golf WRX Radio. So that is out there as well. If you ever want to listen to myself just talk about clubs that I've hit. But yeah, no, and I thank you. I mean, it's been awesome jumping on here and being part of the live at lunch. I didn't ever think I'd be a guest on here, so it's pretty cool. I appreciate it.
Well, we'll do it again for sure, because I know there's more categories down the line here in just the best of series. So
Yeah.
We'll have to line that up again. I encourage anybody watching, yeah, go get fit. Go get fit for any of the products that we talked about today. Could be current gen, could be the last year's products that we talked about. Go get fit, get yourself dialed in. Because while these results might mention specific products, it's ultimately about what fits your swing and fits your game. So, yeah, stay tuned. Next Thursday at 1 p.m. Central, we'll be live again. Subscribe to the channel wherever you subscribe. And then lastly, Brian, again, one more time, I'll say it. Thank you for the time. And we appreciate it and everything that you do. Golfers, again, subscribe. Tell Brian thank you in the comments, and we'll see you next week on Live at Lunch.
Thank you, Drew.
All right. Is Brian still there? You still there?
Yep, I'm still here.